Hello and welcome to the Small Business Briefing. I'm Brian Calley, CEO of the Small Business Association of Michigan.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, and thanks for tuning in today. I'm Sarah Miller, Vice President of Operations with SPAM. And before we get to our lineup today, I want to welcome one of our new members, MBI Automation, and owner Matt Blomfield. So, welcome to SPAM. We do have a special guest, repeat guest, I should say, not just a return guest, but a repeat guest joining us today. So, Brian, I'll turn it over to you to introduce him to the viewers.
All right, very good. Well, Sean Egan will be no stranger to the audience. He's been on the briefing talking about so many different issues. But the secret to how we're able to get back to you on the technical questions behind regulations, like when the Earned Sick Time Act was up, and you'd like throw a fastball or a curveball at us, and we weren't really sure how to answer it or how it would be interpreted. And then we'd get back with you and very quickly. Well, the secret to that success is Sean Egan and his team are very, very quick to respond anytime we have questions. But they do more than manage regulations. There's actually something, Sean, that you have that I wanted to get in front of our members. You've been spending over the last couple of years, really spent a lot of time on the development of mental health supports in the context of businesses and employees. And I'd like for you to just give an overview of LEADS, where that came, what it is, where it came from, and most importantly, how our members can plug in.
Yeah, absolutely. Love to, and so happy to be back with you all. And just again, as Brian said about how responsive I am, SPAM, Brian and Sarah are very responsive and helpful for us in all of the work that we do, including our focus on workplace mental health. We started this in 2022, kind of coming out of the emergency part of COVID and really focused in on workplace mental health. And we included big business and small business. And those small businesses came to us through SBAN. So they were very helpful in kind of putting everything that we put together. We've been saying workplace mental health. We've rebranded to Healthy Work, Healthy Mind. It's really focusing in on total worker health. It's a concept you're going to hear more and more about. And over the course of time, we've done tons of presentations. We've talked to business owners, workers, small business, chambers, you name it, all over the state. And we've continued to kind of grow and develop what it is we're focused in on. So one of the things that we've been trying to do is find a systematic approach for our workplaces to tackle the challenges of workplace mental health. And there's a few areas I'll talk about real brief on what that means, but we've developed what we call the LEADS program. And this is a linear program. So it's learn, educate, act, deploy, and then study. Study is that last piece, and that's what we're doing in the pilot. But we want to make sure that what we're doing makes an impact and makes a difference. So it's just what it sounds like. Learn is really looking at benefits, policies, procedures, looking at how we manage different conflicts, how we do things in the workplace, bringing education in not only to the leadership, but to the employees themselves. So I share some stories when I do my talks about some personal struggles that I've had and how I didn't even know what it was. So kind of creating that baseline of understanding and awareness across the employee spectrum so that people understand when they're having challenges from stress or trauma or adverse childhood experiences or what those might feel like. And then putting that into practice. So you're getting in an action phase, deploying it across the network, and then finding ways to actually measure what is out the other end. Now, when we're building all of this, we're thinking about all of you and SPAM and small employers across the state of Michigan, because what we're designing is something that we're paying for with educational tools that we're paying to bring in with experts to make sure that smaller employers that might not be in a position to make these types of investments can do it through us. So we love big companies, of course, but we understand that they can probably afford to bring in those experts. So we want to build the thing that you all can have access to. So there's a lot of reasons to participate in LEADS or any of the other training we're doing. There's just stats all over the place about how impactful focusing in on total worker health can be. And 40% of all turnovers related to stress. We can reduce burnout. The bottom bullet there on the left-hand side, though, is one of the things I always say is the way to deal with the labor shortage is to not lose the people you have. So recruiting and retention are just huge when we're looking at the population shifting and the number of workers coming in not being enough. We really have to make sure we're successful with what we have. So we're going to bring in all of those tools to help employers do that. And we focus in on the three pillars. This is developed over the last 3 years where we talk about the impacts of stress. Those are things that are happening in the workplace, those things affecting the workplace. So we're all carrying our life experiences with us. That can be PTSD for our veteran friends. Brian and I were talking about before we got on the call. It can be adverse childhood experiences and how those impact or change our ability to deal with stress. They could be things like different traumas that we've experienced. And then, of course, connections to individual behavioral health supports. Now, in a longer presentation, I would share more with you on why we have to put this system together. But the reality is that statistically, the majority of people that could use help are not going to go get it. And I believe a lot of that is because they don't understand they need it, or that the stigma is too strong to get it. So we're trying to bring in the concepts of therapy and growth and behavioral health, recognizing that not everybody's going to go get the actual support they need, but we can still improve those outcomes. And it fits within our current workplace safety and health thinking. So on the left-hand side, for anybody that does workplace safety and health, we have what we call the hierarchy controls. And that's how we deal with workplace safety and health hazards like OSHA and MyOSHA. We see there the least effective is personal protective equipment. That's because we're not removing the hazard. We're just trying to protect against the hazard. So the hazard is still there. On that right-hand side on your screen, hopefully the same, that total worker health framework, which is coming from the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health, is doing the same thing, thinking about psychosocial hazards, traumas, adverse childhood experiences. And similarly, those wellness programs only are sort of the lowest level of protection that we can do when we just focus on the individual. So what we're doing in LEADS is kind of putting those all together. So this is what it would look like for participating employers. We would start out on this road. You'd do some baseline assessments. You would move into policies, benefits, practices. You would move over to respectful workplaces. You'd jump into mental health essentials. You'd do some Our Brains at Work, and you would have some final assessments. And this would be a strong and big commitment from employers to participate, but it's going to run the gamut. We have great experts. So this isn't Sean coming in to do this with you. We have Dr. Michelle Keys from the University of Michigan's Eisenberg Depression Center, Dr. Michelle Kaminsky from MSU's School of Labor and Industrial Relations, one organizational psychology, one psychologist, and they're going to be the folks that are primarily putting on this training in our workplaces to help kind of grow the better outcomes. So it's significant. And this is over the course of what we think will be 3 months. You have about 6 hours of training commitments for the employees themselves. So that's going to be Our Brains, it's going to be mental health intro, that's going to be some basic baseline stuff. And then leaders and HR personnel are going to go above that. So they get that same 6 hours plus additional training specific for managers, supervisors, and leaders. And then HR folks are going to put in a little bit of extra time on the policies, practices, and benefits. And we think that this will make a big impact. The other thing that we're going to do in this LEADS program is study it. So there's going to be assessments for the workforce. There's going to be evaluations after the fact. And we want to make sure that what we are bringing into the workplace makes the impact that we want it to have and the lasting change that can be a real benefit and impact for the employers. So a couple of QR codes on your screen. One is for if you want to apply for the program, there's more information there, or there's one simply to just request more information from us. We launched this the week before on November 20th, and we've had a number of interested employers kind of come in already. Many have applied, some want more info. We're going to have some other tools that we're putting together for those that don't get in the pilot program, because by nature, pilot programs are small, which means we won't be able to fit every employer in there. And our long game is to build that into a more permanent consultative type program where we, as the government, can help employers do this by funding at least the educational components and some of the other pieces. That'll take some work down the road, but we've had good bipartisan response to that so far. So I'll pause there and happy to take any.
Very good. Well, thanks so much, Sean. Very informative and something quite responsive to what we've heard. The resiliency of employees has been seemingly on the decline for a while, and trying to get to the bottom of that and understand how to support and retain and have highly productive, active, long-term, satisfied, and happy employees is, of course, a huge benefit to employers. On this, is there a particular profile of company that you're looking for on here, and is it available to all types of employers and thinking
Yeah,
about like our audience has, we have nonprofits, we have local governments, mostly small businesses that are a member of SBAM, but any type of qualifications that people ought to know
yeah.
about?
It's marginally a first come, first serve. The pilot is going to be small, so we're only looking at like three cohorts of about 10 employers each because we want to study the what's happening in there. We're going to have other tools available. We built everything around this premise of about 500 or fewer. We'll go a little bit bigger, but our goal really is to be in that space with small employers. We want to go as wide for the pilot program with industries as we can. We do want to eventually have tailor-made industry level intervention programs, but to get started, we want to see what works here and what doesn't work there really quickly so that we can start making adjustments. But the long goal and the goal of the pilot is to be broad and industry based. When I say sort of quasi first come first serve is that we want enough representation so we can understand what the impacts are having. So, for example, we wouldn't want a cohort of 10 just construction employers. We would want to kind of mix that up because we want to be able to see what may or may not work in different locations. So anybody that's interested can apply. And if we don't have enough room in the pilot, we are developing those other tools that'll be a little bit easier, kind of, we call them foundations to get into so that employers can at least start accessing those.
Excellent. Well, great work, Sean. Thanks for bringing this to our attention. And so you heard it from him, from Sean just now that you're talking about three cohorts of maybe 10 employers each. So if this does look like something of interest to you, please do. If you caught that QR code, I'm sure if you can make that available to us,
Yeah.
we can send it out as well after this presentation. So very good. I appreciate your time, Sean. Thanks for the partnership. Thanks for all the work. I know this has been a really important piece of your responsibilities over the last several years, and it's great to see it really come to fruition in such a tangible way.
Yeah, love it. Certainly have other things that we could share with you too. So I'll check in with you both separately on some other stuff we're doing. Maybe we'll be back with you soon.
Yeah, excellent. All right. Thanks so
Thank
much,
you.
Sean.
All right. Yeah. Thanks, Sean. And yes, we will have the resources available on our website shortly. All right. So, Brian, we saw an attractive economic development incentive proposal from the House of Representatives recently, and now the Senate has introduced their own proposal. So, how does this one look from the small business lens?
Well, the Senate proposal looks more traditional in terms of like these economic development programs usually do. They're focused on big projects or when a single employer will hire like a whole bunch of people at the same time. And so they presented something that had tiers and the tiers were like if you create 3,000 jobs essentially at a time or 1,000 jobs at a time or 250 jobs at a time, what the incentives might be. And then they had a component that they talked about that there was a small business component. And so when I was really pleased to hear that, but when I saw the details around it, their idea of small business is 25 jobs at a time, which of course is not going to be very accessible. So I would say that we're disappointed, but not hopeless that they can't be brought about. Remember, on the House side, they had if you create a job that qualifies for the subsidy, it doesn't matter if you create one or 100 or more. A job is a job. It's just as valuable from a small business as it is from a big business. We would argue it's actually more valuable from a small business because there's just more built-in diversity in the industries and the locations and all that kind of stuff. You don't have all your eggs in one basket. So the Senate proposal is definitely not a small business proposal. It's a big business proposal, and while it doesn't it's not out of line with what has been in place in is kind of commonly how states are looking at it these days is to mainly favor bigger businesses. We think it really misses the boat. So we're thankful that there's a different proposal in the House that allows for small businesses to more robustly participate if when they're creating jobs, and we're highly engaged in this. It's something that we're going to have we do have a pretty strong opinion on that when they're creating these economic development incentives programs that they just simply cannot um, they cannot leave small businesses out anymore. By the way, the way it works though is like a tax capture. So there's um, every employee pays a 4.25% state income tax. This proposal allows the employer to retain, instead of sending that money to the state for a certain number of years, depending on other conditions, they can those um, retain those taxes and not sending it into the state. It works like a 4%, 4.25% subsidy on the cost of the wages. Um, the House's proposal was 50% of the state withholdings, so it would be a little over 2%. Um, that could be retained for up to 10 years. So it is it's it's a starting point, I guess, is how I would look at it, but definitely not on its face, not something that your average small business owner would be able to participate in.
All right, well, thanks for that update. I know you'll keep us all posted. So in the last couple of years, it seems like we've heard a lot about Stellantis pulling back their North American operations. Cranes, though, has reported a shift. So let us know what's happening.
Yeah, that's actually kind of a surprise, and maybe it shouldn't be a surprise given the way that tariffs have created more domestic incentives, and then if you want access at the U.S. Market, you have to make more here. But they really have started to reverse the activities of the last few years. Now they have a newish CEO as well, so uh, there's potentially a lot of things at play in terms of the change. But they have now at Auburn Hills. So if you've kind of driven by in 75 and you see the old Chrysler headquarters or the Stellantis North American headquarters. They have hired now hundreds of new salaried workers at that location. Remember, a lot of other places, other automakers had really been cutting back on those types of positions. Stellantis had already done that, but maybe over trimmed and now are building it back up. The see, it says in all, the maker of Ram, Jeep, Chrysler, and Dodge vehicles is adding nearly 2,000 direct white collar jobs in engineering, manufacturing, quality, and other departments. So that's a big move. It's a big reverse in what we had seen out of them. So we'll keep an eye on that. We do. It's just one of those, really the main industry that that does have an impact on the overall health and confidence and income levels and GDP of the state, as that industry, which is still massive in Michigan. So we do keep a close eye on it, and Stellantis definitely um, kind of making a U-turn here in the direction. I mean, I wondered whether or not they would even have that North American headquarters before too long, and well, it looks like it has new life.
While we're on the topic of cars, at the beginning of the year, there was some fear about the tariff impact on vehicle sales levels and, of course, sales prices. So, what's happening in the market today?
Well, there's definitely resistance against how high new vehicle prices are getting, and they were even before the tariffs. They were getting pretty high, and so they've been pushed even higher. Remember last week we talked about the companies had overestimated how much the tariff cost would be. Like Ford thought it would be 2 billion. They've revised that down to 1 billion, but still 1 billion is a lot of money, and so it does have an impact on the overall cost. So the average new vehicle price is now approaching $50,000, which is it's just for somebody who started driving in 1993, it's that blows my mind that it's that high. But between tariffs, inflation, tighter job market, squeezing uh, squeezing both the buyers and the sellers of vehicles. That the federal electric vehicle subsidy of $7,500 fell off at the same time. So all these things they're dampening sales. So dealers are saying that cars are sitting on their lot longer than what they had been previously. But there is a pretty tight market on the used car sales as well. So it's not like there's a lot of alternatives. So you're not you're not seeing, it's not to a point where there's big drops and fluctuations in prices, but it's definitely slower and cars are more expensive. So just want another thing to keep an eye on. There's so many different aspects um, of the economy right now that look very kind of borderline, not like the bottom's falling out, but not, trends that don't inspire confidence either. So hold on for 2026. It's going to be an interesting one.
All right. And speaking of 2026, it is an election year, and we're getting prepared by not only sharing some information about the gubernatorial candidates, but we're also preparing for from our political action committee standpoint. So, Brian, we have two PAC events coming up this week. Why don't you give a little bit of a background as to why a small business owner might want to consider attending?
Yeah, and the two events, we got one in Grand Rapids, which is on Wednesday, and then one in Royal Oak, which is on Thursday. So Grand Rapids and Royal Oak. And this is a really, really important part of what we do. And we raise money into and we pool dollars from small business owners into a political action committee, and then we support pro small business candidates. And I think it's an important distinction to make, where people oftentimes think about it like money is raised so you can influence the decisions of political people. We don't operate that way. What we do is we raise money to support people who are pro small business. We don't want to have to convince them to be small business. I mean, we try to convince people to be small business, but when it comes to our political activities, our political action committee in particular, we're really looking to support people and help people get elected when they already are small business, that they're already believers in the value and the importance of small businesses to our communities. So that's the philosophy that we take into it. We are intentionally bipartisan as well in this approach. So we look at the record and positions on issues and compare it to what's important to small businesses according to policies set by our members. And so and Sarah doesn't, we don't set the agenda here at SBAM. Our members set the agenda, and then we're the messengers that carry it into the process. Those that's the measuring stick that we measure these candidates against, and so it all really fits together. Your participation is so important, whether it's on a board or a commission, or helping with vetting and evaluating policies that we take, or supporting candidates that have a proven record of being pro small business. If you're no matter where you're at on the political spectrum, whether you're from the left to the right, if you own a small business, we want SBM to be your home. We want SBM to be the place where that we're just going to be out there supporting those who support you, support the legislators and gubernatorial candidates that are pro small business. So thank you for your consideration. Thank you for your support in all the different ways that you have in the past. And again, if you're interested, please take a look at our website. Maybe we can share in the link if it hadn't already happened. Those two PAC events in Royal Oak and Grand Rapids, and there will be more. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. Thanks, Brian. I did share the link so that you can register if you'd like to attend either of those. And then I'll just point out two other events to kind of round out 2025. I mean, we are in December now, so the year is quickly waning, but we also have a Capital Region owner to owner event opportunity next week, December 11th. It's going to be at Impression 5 Science Center, which is a very cool location here in downtown Lansing. So if you're around, we'd love to see you there. And then our Road to 2026 gubernatorial candidate series also continues. That is in 2 weeks on December 15th with Tom Leonard, and we will be, I think, over back in Oakland County. So sbam.org/events will get you information on all of these, and we'd love to see you before the year ends. But that is our show for today. So thanks for tuning in, and we will see you back here next Monday at 3 o'clock.
Thanks so much, everybody. See you next week.